The most important point that all parties have to undertake is to implement the Paris Agreement. We said that we would do a number of things, and now that has to be rolled out. First, we will have to sign the Paris Agreement. Then we will have to prepare for the ratification of the Paris Agreement. And of course, we have to put all our promises into domestic legislation. And that is also what we are going to do inside the EU. Well, we will have to prepare our legislation. The effort-sharing decision is going to be a very important one, because we still have to do that other half of the emissions. We did the ETS last year, but now on the effort-sharing, that is all emissions coming out of sectors that are not covered by the emissions trading system, will have to be put into legislation. So the effort-sharing decision, and related to that, we are going to have two important papers. One on LULUCF, on forestry and agricultural issues, and on the other side on transport, a worrying sector because transport emissions remain very high, have been continuing increasing, and so there we will have to act. We may come with legislation next year, but this year we will have to put in policy terms with our colleagues from DG Move what we are going to plan for the coming year. It's going to be very busy because in the second half of the year there are a number of files where we are already working on with our colleagues from DG Energy, on renewable energy, on energy efficiency, on EU governance, where we are having now a climate and energy governance system that we are putting up. So that's going to be pretty busy indeed. But the signing is of course very important, and it's gathering the troops again. After Paris, where there was a hooray kind of atmosphere, now we have to see and check whether everybody is still on board. And following the signing, there is going to be a debate on how are we going to prepare for the ratification, because we need 55 countries and we need 55% of global emissions for the Paris Agreement to enter into force. The most important is that we do what we said we would do. And I think for us that is implementing our legislation, but also for others to come forward with the legislation. So we are watching what the United States is going to do. They have elections, and we hope that the next president is going to take the commitments that the United States have been putting on the table, that they are going to keep those promises. We also look very much at China and the emerging economies, because a lot of the credibility of the Paris Agreement hinges on the fact that we now have and the United States and the emerging economies on board. So implementation is going to be very important. Now, preparing for Marrakesh is going to be another important milestone, because in Marrakesh, on monitoring, reporting, verification, we said we would do a number of things. What is it exactly that we are going to carve out as a work program? And the other big element that came into the Paris Agreement is adaptation and loss and damage, and how to offer support for developing countries who are suffering a lot from climate change. So a lot on the table. Absolutely. I think what we did in Paris, altogether, the world altogether, but also our role as the EU has been very important. And I think everybody recognizes that. And now we have to keep up the momentum indeed, and there is a lot to be done. I mean, we know we have a tradition already inside the EU. We have some 10 years of policy implementation already. Others are just embarking on policy implementation. So there is a lot of work in terms of talking to others, sharing best practices, capacity building, as we name that in our jargon, but there is a lot to be done, and we get a lot of requests as well. Thanks God, our colleagues in other departments are very much geared up to help us out. The Development Cooperation, DG DevCo, is really looking at doing a maximum job in terms of climate mainstreaming, but also domestically inside the EU. We have fresh debates with our colleagues from energy, transport, agriculture, you name it, where a lot needs to be done in the coming years.